Okay, so I have managed to find another one of my childhood books. This one is called Dinosaurs, a fully illustrated or authoritative, easy to use guide to them. It was published by a Golden Guide from St. Martin's Press. I got this from Moab, Utah when I was a child, many moons ago, from a gift shop. I can't remember where. I just know that I got it. Anyway, first, so basically what I want to do is talk about the many like dinosaur designs that we have in here that are very much for their time. This is a pretty outdated book. It looks as though it was published around 1990, so it's pretty dated by today's standards, even dated by some other standards, like even the point in which Jurassic Park came around and a lot of our understanding of dinosaurs changed. So this will definitely be interesting to look at. First, I want to talk about this cover. It's probably Tyrannosaurus Rex represented here, but it's like very shrink wrapped, very orange in coloration, has black stripes, and I think it looks really cool. It's very 90s, and I do think that this is a statue. So if any of you know where this statue is from, be sure to let me know, and I will try my best to go and visit it, because look how cool that is. So if you know where that is, be sure to let me know. Okay, so the book offers a lot of kind of basic insights about dinosaurs in general, like the fossilization process, something that a lot of people kind of get confused on. I think that's very cool. Really kind of shows that dinosaurs need to be buried before they are officially fossilized. So more often than not, they need to be near a water source. That way they can get buried in sediment, and so that sediment can replace their bones and create fossils. So I think that's very cool to see that they're kind of educating on that sort of thing. They also show the kind of dinosaur collecting process. You get to see the whole just protecting the fossil as you try to excavate it, how much of a delicate process that truly is. And we get to some of our first dinosaur illustrations, like with this iguanodon. So that is pretty outdated to our current understanding. It's decently shrink wrapped, so it has like probably the thinnest layer of muscle. But skeletally, it is pretty good. Like the skull looks pretty cool, and it's just very thin neck, very thin proportions in general, and it's kind of dragging its tail. So that's going to set the stage to the kind of dinosaurs that we might be seeing in this book. Ooh, we even get to talk about some archosaurs. Dinosaurs are archosaurs, by the way. There's actually two types of archosaurs that are still alive today, and that's crocodilians and birds. And birds are dinosaurs, so I mean, I don't know where I was going with that, but I think it's just cool that they have a little section talking about archosaurs. Oh, this is cool. They also offer a little bit of the identification process of how to identify a dinosaur, such as the fact that they have their legs kind of underneath their body instead of being sprawled out like lizards or something like that, as well as one of the most key identifying features is the fact that dinosaurs in their pelvis, they have an opening that goes all the way through that you can see through. Something that's not really present in other reptiles, such as pterosaurs. Pterosaurs don't have that opening, which is one of the ways that we distinguish pterosaurs from dinosaurs. One of the reasons why pterosaurs are not dinosaurs. So this kind of stuff is cool. So far, we're getting some pretty decent stuff out of this. Or dinosaur brains. That's very fun. Kind of talking about the brain casings of certain dinosaurs. Even mentions the whole early misconception that Stegosaurus had a second brain right where the hip is, basically. This does say that, no, it was not a second brain. In fact, it was a glycogen body that helps supply extra nutrients to the nervous system, if I'm not mistaken. So very cool. But we'll go ahead and move on to this little Plateosaurus design right here. That is a pretty outdated interpretation of Plateosaurus. I do think that its neck was a little bit longer and its head was a little bit smaller. But the biggest thing is that there's this one right here, this bipedal. Bipedal Plateosaurus, that's correct. But this one back here is quadrupedal. That is incorrect. At the time, it was thought that they were quadrupedal, but could switch to bipedal locomotion whenever they wanted. Nowadays, we know that they were primarily bipedal and couldn't switch to quadrupedal locomotion. They're basically the kind of precursors of sauropods, and at the time, bipedalism was basically the standard for most dinosaurs, so it was quite different in the grand scheme of things. They lived in the Triassic, by the way, so a time when dinosaurs weren't exactly plentiful. Here we go. Here's Coelophysis. So far, looks pretty okay. I can't remember what the consensus is on if Coelophysis had feathers or not, but this is what it looks like in the book. What I want to talk about is the stomach contents right here. So those stomach contents painted a bad picture for Coelophysis. The specimen was found with those little stomach contents in its where its belly was, and it was thought that those were young Coelophysis. And so it was kind of thought, it was assumed that this Coelophysis fed on the young. It was later found that these were just lizard bones, or just a smaller reptile bones that were fossilized with it. And not to say that Coelophysis never partook in any cannibalism, and like I think most, if not all, theropod or carnivorous dinosaurs would do something along those lines, but it kind of got the reputation of being a mainly cannibalistic dinosaur because of that. The same thing kind of happened to Majungasaurus, but that's a topic for another day. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that. I have to point this out. This is the very famous Charles R. Knight's Allosaurus picture painting that we saw practically everywhere. There's the skeleton reference of that. This is a pretty cool one. The portrayal of Allosaurus at the time when Charles R. Knight did these, which was before the publication of this book, but at the time, dinosaurs were thought to be a lot more kangaroo-like in appearance. At least the two-legged dinosaurs were thought to be like that, where they stood straight up, drug their tails around, and just were quite different to how we see them now today. We now know that such an action, doing something like that was not possible for it. Its skeleton wouldn't allow something like that. It's just interesting to see the change over time. Deinonychus. I will start using images like this whenever I'm saying that the Jurassic Park Velociraptor was based off of Deinonychus, because it was. So every time I say something like that, there's always someone who says that it was based off of Utahraptor. First of all, Utahraptor wasn't discovered until during the production of Jurassic Park. Second of all, it wasn't officially described until about a week after the movie released, so it wasn't based off of Utahraptor. This is what Deinonychus looked like at the time. Look familiar? Anyway, yeah, that is a very dated portrayal of Deinonychus right there. Completely featherless. I think the skull is a little bit off too. Pretty outdated. Of course, pretty accurate for its time, I do believe. So it's very cool to see these type of things. Or Archaeopteryx. This is a very important dinosaur for our understanding of dinosaurs as a whole. At the time, they were basically just seen as giant lizards until Archaeopteryx was found with feathers. It was found with feathers. That completely recontextualized how we could see dinosaurs, because not only did it have feathers, but it had other attributes that we are pretty familiar with non-avian dinosaurs, such as three-fingered clawed hands, or a long tail, or a mouthful of tiny sharp teeth. So it was basically like a mix of what we thought at the time a dinosaur and a bird. And that really kind of got the ball rolling to the point where eventually we get to today, where we know that dinosaurs are birds are a group of theropod dinosaurs. What's interesting, though, is that we know part of the color of Archaeopteryx. We're able to know that because of melanosomes. Sometimes when a dinosaur is preserved well enough, particularly, like mostly with feathered dinosaurs, if they're preserved well enough, you can still see the melanosomes. You compare those to the melanosomes of modern-day birds, and you get the colors. So we know at least part of its wing, like maybe this part right here. And we know that it was black, like a really dark blackish color, which is kind of shown here. So maybe predicted correctly. But they also gave it some really bright colors. We don't know the rest of the coloration of it. Most seem to kind of color it in, like with brownish colors, which is interesting. I don't know where that line of thought comes from, but it's definitely really cool to see. But yeah, we know a little bit of the coloration of Archaeopteryx. Always really cool to see. This is a blast from the past. Anatosaurus. That is very different. No longer known as Anatosaurus. It is now just Edmontosaurus. Now, basically what happened when paleontology was still very new and we were making all kinds of new discoveries, there was a lot of dinosaurs that were established as their own genera from seemingly small differences. One of these dinosaurs was Edmontosaurus. There were several different genera that were established that, were simply not their own genera. This includes Trachodon, Anatosaurus, as you saw right here, or Anatotitan. And as time goes on and we find more fossil material, we learn a lot more. We're able to reevaluate all of these different dinosaurs and really question their validity. And many of them were just not valid as their own genus. So, per taxonomic rules, you would resort back to the first named, and since Edmontosaurus was the first named, they would all go back they would all just fall under Anatosaurus. This happened to several different dinosaurs during the earliest days of paleontology. One of the most notable is Iguanodon, where several, like this isn't just different genera, several different other dinosaurs, ornithopods, that shared a resemblance to Iguanodon were just named as a different species of Iguanodon. And that has been reduced significantly by today's standards. Yeah, that's definitely the fun thing about early paleontology. But look how dated this looks. They even show the mummy. That's very cool. But look at this portrayal right here. One thing you'll note is that it doesn't have this kind of like beak extension, something that we would have known about if it wasn't for Edward Drinker Cope, who accidentally, or something along those lines, destroyed part of the skeleton, and so we lost that tip of the beak. But very fun design. It's kind of wading in the swamp. It's got a decently cool coloration to it. Yeah, it's very dated. I love Anatosaurus. I love going back and seeing these older designs. Can't skip past Myosaurus, because I think Myosaurus is such a cool dinosaur. Translates to good mother lizard. And the reason why is because of several specimens being found with nests and various different ages of young Myosaurus, indicating that they did take care of their young. Kind of recontextualize how we saw dinosaurs and their parenting behaviors, indicating that some dinosaurs weren't just cold-blooded. Cold-blooded not in a literal sense, but just kind of like cold-blooded as in, I don't like you, cold-blooded. Like they wouldn't just abandon their dinosaur, or they wouldn't just abandon their babies. We now know because of Myosaurus that at least some dinosaurs did care for their young. What a cool design right there too. Myosaurus is also a cool dinosaur. Hey, we get a skull of one of my favorite dinosaurs, Pachyrhinosaurus. Just wanted to point that out there because I like Pachyrhinosaurus. I also really like Styracosaurus, and it's also interesting how consistent Styracosaurus has been over time. For the most part, you look at most modern reconstructions, and this is pretty close to what it looked like. Such a cool dinosaur. It has all of these spikes on its frill. It's got that nasal spike. Such a cool dinosaur. And Pachyrhinosaurus is just awesome. Love it. And there we go. Those are some notable parts of this overall book. Once again, if you know where this statue is, if it is a statue, if you know where it is, be sure to let me know, because I would like to try to track it down and try to visit it at some point, if I can, of course. But this was a fun little book. Definitely aged, and it's interesting that it was printed in the early 90s, and I was able to find it in the early 2000s and still purchase it. So that's definitely interesting, even though it does offer a lot of outdated information. I didn't purchase it. I don't know why I said that, but my parents did. I was a child. But this was definitely a fun one to look through, and definitely was a blast from the past. I loved having just dinosaur books in general. If I saw a dinosaur on a book, I was like, I had to have it. So that is the origin of this book, I guess. Anyway, that is pretty much all that I have for this one. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have an awesome day.